9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world. Coming to you all the way from Ireland, it's Sandie Byrne.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Life After Life with me, Sandie Byrne. Now in this episode I want to talk about something that comes up again and again and again and again when I meet people, or when I'm having an online session, maybe with a group of people or whatever. And I also know that I've touched on this in previous episodes, but I think it's so important that I wanted to touch on it again, okay? And that is the question that people ask is, when is the right time to have a reading? Okay, so the very simple answer to this question is that there is no right time to have a reading. There is only a right time for you. Okay, nobody can tell you when the right time is. That has to come from you. Okay, so let's take, for example, after somebody has died. So people often, contact me after someone has died and they ask how long do they need to wait before they have a reading. And my answer to this question is always at least 3 months, okay? Now, the reason why I ask people to wait, there's a couple of bits to this, so bear with me. So the reason that I ask people to wait 3 months after their loved one has passed is because, first of all, mediumship is not grief counselling. Okay, the first thing that you need to do is to come to terms with your loss, to accept that this person is not coming back. Okay, working through all of that is something that you do in a session or 2 or 3 of grief counselling. Okay, so never mix mediumship up with grief counselling. Okay, I'm not a qualified counsellor in any way. Now there probably are mediums out there who are, okay, and you could probably look for those, but I know that I can speak for myself and say that I'm not. Okay, and this one, of course, number 2 is most important, that you need to allow the person who has passed, okay, so your loved one, you need to allow them time to settle into the spirit world. Okay, so don't forget about what they've been through to get there. They need time, to build up their energy again, to settle in, to spend time with those, that who went before them, that they're getting reacquainted with all their family and friends that they've lost over the years. Okay, so sometimes we forget that while we're here grieving for them, they're also over there grieving for us, but also for the rest of their family, their friends, their community, their life. They've lost everything. And that takes some getting used to be fair. Okay? And also, as I said, you need to give them time to build up the energy to communicate with you. Now, I always use this example, so if you've heard this before, bear with me. What I say to people is, imagine if a big hand came down out of the sky and it picked you up and dropped you in the middle of Siberia where nobody spoke English. Okay? So, if that happened to you, it would take you some time to develop your language enough to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. So it's the same idea for those who have gone over to spirit. They have to learn a whole new way of communicating with you. And that won't happen immediately. Okay, they don't just arrive there and all of a sudden, they start communicating. Okay. Time passes very quickly in the spirit world. Okay, as a rule of thumb, think of a month in earth time as being like a day in spirit. Okay, so a month in our earth time is like a day to them in spirit. So even if you wait just that 3 months to connect with them, it will be just like 3 days have passed. Okay, now I'm not saying that they can't come through or that they haven't come through in the past. I'm saying what's best for you and what's best for them, okay? And that is to give both of you time to get used to the new reality that you're both facing, okay? Because it's different, isn't it? And it's going to be different, depending on each person individually. How somebody passes is another thing to keep in mind when you're thinking of how long you need to wait after they've passed. Because, someone who passes, for example, after a long illness, maybe a cancer or something similar, they're going to have used up all of their energy before they leave this earth. They're going to be exhausted because they'll have fought this illness. Okay, they'll have fought to stay. So for them, they'll have to build up enough energy when they go over, and that will take time. You might find that people who've passed suddenly, get their messages or get signs to you quicker. Okay, because they haven't been fighting illness before they left. So maybe there's been an accident or a suicide or something like this, okay? And someone just left very, very quickly. Okay, well, they would probably build up their energy quicker in the spirit world because they didn't arrive exhausted in spirit. So they arrived there with a certain amount of energy anyway. Okay, so you might get connection for them sooner. But we have to, of course, bear into account, their emotional well-being and your emotional well-being. Okay, you've both been through a trauma. So whether there's illness or not, it's kind of good practice to give both of you some time to settle into the new reality, okay, before you get into, having readings. Okay. Now, you might wait the 3 months, you might wait 6 years, or you might never have a reading. I'm not at all saying that everybody should have a reading 3 months after a loss, but this is the very least amount of time that you should wait. Okay? After that 3-month period has passed, it's then up to you to decide if you're ready. A lot of people aren't ready after the 3 months. It can take some people years before they feel ready to connect. And there's some people that will never connect with their loved ones until they themselves have crossed over to spirit. And that's absolutely fine. Mediumship isn't for everybody. There isn't a person in this whole world, I don't care if they're a medium or not, who can say to you, now is the right time, or you should have a reading now. Okay, that's not the way it works. You have to decide. Okay? And once you find yourself in a place where you feel that you might want to have a reading, then you'll start to think about the right time to schedule it. Okay? Now, you listening to this podcast, okay, this is your sign from me to you that there is no perfect time. Okay, it doesn't exist. There's no perfect time for anything in this world. Okay, the time is when you feel ready. Okay, I don't care if there's an anniversary or a birthday or whatever. That doesn't necessarily bring someone closer to you. Okay, and a lot of you who listen regularly will have heard me talking in the past about Halloween and about how it's not any different to any other time of year. Other than the fact that we've always been told, all our lives we've been told that spirits are closer to us on the date of Halloween than they are at any other time. Okay, and therefore we believe it and we're open to it. Okay, our energy is more open to receiving signs from the spirit world because we're told that we will. Okay, but it's no different than any other time of year. And the same can be said for our connection to spirit. Okay, your loved one may have loved Christmas, but that doesn't mean that they're more likely to come through at Christmas. It's your energy that might be more open to connecting with them during the holiday season. Because they're around you all of the time. And they will want to connect with you and let you know that they're okay. They're ready at any time of year. You need to decide for yourself when you're ready and when you'll most need a reading. Okay? Now that brings us on to another question. What do I mean by when you're ready? Okay? Well, firstly, as I've already said, make sure that you've accepted the loss. A reading will not bring someone back. You won't even see them. They can and will give you information as evidence to prove that it's them. But if you haven't grieved properly, then it's possible that a reading might make you even more emotional than you were before. Okay, so always keep your emotional well-being in mind. And also make sure that you're in a good place. If you're someone who suffers from, severe anxiety, or maybe you're someone who suffers from a mental health issue. Okay, I'm not saying these, that's a finite list. Okay, I'm just using those as an example. But, if your anxiety is flaring up, for example, or if you're going through, maybe a psychotic episode, I don't laugh, at that, but I'm just saying, some people might be going through it. And, I think it's silly the thought that, a psychotic episode might make somebody think that they need a mediumship reading. But it's just the first thing that popped into my head, okay? But, if you're going through anything like that, then it might not be the best time for you to connect with spirit, because spirit will always assess the situation for themselves. And if they feel that a reading might not be a good thing for you at that particular moment, then they might not come through. And this in itself, it could feed your anxiety more. Okay? So be fair to you, be fair to spirit, and make sure, that you're in a good place emotionally. Okay, I mean, you're going to be grieving. I'm not talking about grief. Of course you're going to be grieving. But, if there's something else going on that's really affecting you functioning on a day-to-day level, okay, then it might not be the right time. Okay? And I know, I totally get it. I'm probably asking you to take in a lot from me today. Okay? But, a reading isn't an everyday occurrence. It should be an experience, and I want it to be an experience for you. Okay, you're connecting to someone on a different spiritual level to you. They're in a different realm, for goodness sake. So, you won't, or at least, you shouldn't necessarily be doing it more than a couple of times in your lifetime. So make sure that it works for you. Okay? And that brings us on to, talking about how often, you should have a reading. Okay? Back to the original question. Well, first of all, you never should do anything. It's about how much you want it. And as a rule of thumb, I ask people to leave at least 6 months between readings. It could be 20 years, okay, or you might go once in your lifetime and never again. But you should never go more often than once every 6 months, okay? And I can almost hear you saying, why? Why not more often, okay? Well, first of all, you need to allow your energy to build back up again, okay? So if you're someone who has had a reading before, did you ever notice that after your reading that you feel tired? Okay, you'll go to bed that night exhausted and maybe even a little bit thirsty. Okay, this is because your loved one, they don't necessarily connect with the medium. Their energy exists in your aura, okay, or within your energy around you. The medium, so your loved one is here in your energy. Your medium then needs to connect into your energy as well in order to connect with your loved ones. So you have the spirit and the medium both pulling on your energy at the same time. So it's only natural that you will feel tired after a reading. Okay? So you'll need to allow time for your energy to build back up again. Okay? And of course, I've spoke about this in the past, how connecting with spirit can make you very thirsty. So you shouldn't be drinking alcohol, and, you should, maybe take a drink to bed with you that night, because you'll probably wake up really thirsty. Okay. Again, I'm talking about ourselves, because we always think about ourselves here in the, in the earth plane, don't we? But we also need to think about the loved one in spirit. And we also need to allow them time, for them to build their energy back up again. It takes so much energy for them to come through to you from the spirit world that they need to build that energy back up again. Okay? And, of course, I know that we like to think that they do nothing else except watch us all day, every day. But they do have other things to do in the spirit world than just talk to us. Okay? That's a topic for another episode. But they do have other things that they do. Okay? And, I'm always thinking to myself, there's only so many times that a loved one can come through to tell us that they wore red socks on a Thursday, or that they ate bacon and cabbage every Tuesday, or whatever. Okay? There comes a point where they'll have given you all the juicy evidence. Okay? But of course, they will always talk about what's going on around you. But if you are looking for advice on what's happening in your life, then you might choose a psychic reading rather than a mediumship reading. Okay, and that comes down to the difference between the two readings, which I know I've talked about before. Okay, so just make sure, it's lovely to have your loved one come through and say, I saw you picking daisies in the park yesterday and you were thinking about me. It's lovely for them to acknowledge those things. Absolutely. Okay, but how often do you need them to do that? You have to take your emotional well-being into account always. And I never ever want someone to become emotionally dependent on having readings. You know, I don't want someone to feel like they should come and speak to their loved ones in spirit because they don't know if they should wear the blue shoes or the green shoes with their dress to the wedding. Okay, I know that that's maybe a trivial example, but it's just the first thing that popped into my mind. You know, but like, we need to make decisions here, you know, on an earth level without feeling the need to communicate every single time. Okay, I'm not trying to put you off and tell you shouldn't have readings either, but I'm just saying, have a reading because you feel emotionally that you need it, that the time is right for you, not for just the spirit, or not for, you know, the family or the people around you because something's happening here. It has to be the right time for you. Okay, anyway, I think you get my point here. Okay, hopefully. I don't want to rabbit on too long. Okay, and my point in having this rant in this episode, it's because I've noticed a few people coming to me for readings over the past few months because someone they know or maybe another family member has been to a medium for a reading and they were told that someone in the spirit world needs to talk to them or that they have a message for them and therefore they need to come for a reading. Okay, never, ever, 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 ever listen to this. You know, this is not good practice and it's definitely fishing for business. Okay, so when in the whole of your life did you ever have a loved one get you to pass on a cryptic message for them? You know, the answer would be never. If they want to talk to someone, they will go directly to that person and put the idea of going for a reading into their head directly. And this happens quite often. You know, people often come and tell me that, you know, they got the idea of having a reading out of the blue. They just felt one day suddenly that it was right. Okay, or they might have been scrolling on Facebook. It might have been an idea that was in the back of their head and all of a sudden my page popped up out of the blue and they said, right, this is my sign. Okay, they always get the sign that they need. Your loved one doesn't need to go to somebody else's reading to tell them, to tell you to come to the same medium for a reading. That just doesn't happen. When I'm connecting to someone's loved one in a mediumship reading, and if they want to tell something to someone, they just come out with it, okay? There's no messing around. And it did happen to me just a few weeks ago. You know, I was connecting to someone's father and he just came out and said that he needed to let so-and-so know this. And he went on to give the full message, you know, right there and then. And, you know, that person went away with this message. They went back to their family member, gave that message, and then the family member rang me back a few days later to thank me. Okay, I don't know why they were thanking me because I didn't do anything. But they were thanking me, okay, because they said the message was exactly what they needed at that moment. But they didn't feel like they were ready to connect with their loved one in spirit, okay? So they didn't feel the time was right for them to have a reading, but they so needed to hear this message. And their loved one knew that. So the loved one didn't say to me, you know, tell her to tell that other person to come for a reading because I have something really secretive that I need to say to them. Okay, that's not the way it happens. Okay, so you don't always have to have that mediumship connection with someone for them to give you a message. They will say it out if they need to. They will never, ever, ever ask you to come to a specific medium because they're leaving a sacred cryptic message carved in stone there for you. That's not the way it works. As I already said, Spirit will put the idea of going for a reading into your mind if they really feel that the time is right for you to connect. But if someone else is having a reading, they can just send a message that you need to hear at that moment in time so that you know that they are watching over you. Okay, that's all it is. The only one who can decide when you have a reading is you. Okay, so I'm going to step a little bit off my soapbox right now. But I hope that this little chat has given you some clarity around the timing of a reading. There is no right or wrong time. There's only when is the right time for you. Okay, your loved ones will be ready to talk to you. Okay. If you have any question around spirituality or mediumship that you think I can answer, or even, you know, I'm a psychic too, you know, if you have a question that you want me to answer in my podcast, please feel free to contact me. You know, my contact details are in the description box attached to this podcast. Okay, and you can send me an email or a text or a WhatsApp or whatever, a comment on my social media with your question, and I will do my best to answer it as best I can. If I can't answer it, if it's not within my remit, I always try and look for a guest for the podcast that can answer the question for you. Okay, so for now I will say goodbye, and I'll say that I will see you in the next episode of Life After Life. So until then, take care and stay safe.
Discussing everything about the afterlife.